This morning, I want to just come to you from a title of Finding Your Purpose on the Road of Faith. How many of you have already traveled a little bit this year? Maybe it was just a weekend trip or you've already done a vacation. How many of you have done a little bit of traveling already this year? Okay. Was it like a weekend? Maybe was it more than 1 or 2 days? So you have taken maybe a road trip. How many of you flew? Okay. How many of you took a road trip? Those of you who like to drive, God bless you. Especially when you're saying, you know, we're just going to go on down to D.C. and we're going to go down to Virginia. And when we think of 3 and 4 hours, you know, they say that's not a lot. I'm not a driver. I don't particularly care to drive. I just drive because I have to. But what we're going to talk about this morning is finding your purpose on the road of faith. One of the things that I love about the Lord is he always uses so many different, that light is just in my face, so many different parables and analogies. And this morning we're coming from John 15 and 5. And, John 15, verses 1 through 11, but verse 5 is the key verse that we're looking at this morning. And so one of the things about a process is there's a process that we have to go through to understand our purpose. And so I want to invite you this morning to go down this road of faith with me this morning. But before we get to our destination, we've got to actually see our purpose. So there's 3 important stops this morning that we're going to make on this journey, on this road. And the first one, if you would, I did not print out the entire text. So if you could turn in your Bibles to John 15 or in your tablets or your phones, John 15, verses 1 through 11. And I'm not going to read it in its totality, but we do want to just kind of focus on verse 2 first of all. It says, "Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes so that it may bear more fruit." Moving from producing no fruit to producing some fruit is an important stop on the road. So, how many of you, when you are on your trip, well, let's just say, how many of you own a car where it takes less than $20 to fill it up? Whew. How much does it take to fill your tank? About 15. Whew. That's pretty good. How many of you takes more than $25 to fill it up? That's probably everybody else. That's about what it takes to fill mine up, 25. That is a lot when it comes to traveling. If you're going to D.C. or if you're going to Atlanta, or if you're going anywhere, you know that you're going to need to stop. So our first stop is going to be, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you. Any road trip that's worth its weight in gold is going to cost you. And so the first stop we're going to go to is what we call the pruning station. We got to stop by and get some gas, and we've got to fill up for the road. What's the purpose? The purpose for this pruning station is in hopes of producing more fruit. What happens at this stop? This stop is where there's going to be a trimming away of all the unwanted distractions that tend to rob the branches of the nourishments that they receive from the vine. I did a little reading this week, and there is a term for those who grow grapes. It's called a sucker shoot. How many of you have heard of that before? It's called a sucker shoot. I had never heard of it, but there are little branches that grow between the vine and the branch. They kind of intersect, and they begin to grow out of that intersection. The vine in and of itself, it produces what is called a sucker shoot. It is a tongue twister for me, so I have to say it slowly. As you grow larger, what happens is they begin to do exactly what it says. it begins to suck away the life-giving sap on its way to the vine. And so before long, the branches become malnourished and eventually dies, and because the sucker shoot has allowed it to consume what was originally intended for the branch. Sucker shoots will never bear fruit. They'll grow abundant leaves, but they will never produce fruit. They will greatly reduce the quantity and the quality of the fruit that the true vine is supposed to be bearing. Be careful on this stop. Be very careful. Keep in mind that you are on a mission. There is a purpose. You have to get to your destination, so don't get distracted. Because at some point in our lives, we all have to deal with sucker shoots. We all have to deal with them in one way or another. When we allow our priorities to fall disarray, we can count on God coming in doing some pruning. There are some sucker shoots in our lives. It may be people, it may be things. You want to stay away from them because they will suck the living life out of you. You start a conversation, and before you know it, the entire conversation is about them. You go somewhere, and before you know it, it's no longer about anything about God. The purpose that you were there has nothing to do. You ever went out to dinner, and your whole purpose was to eat, and then you go to a dinner with someone, and some of you don't, but you've ordered something, you didn't like anything you ate. You know, the food was bad, you've decided that you will never go to that restaurant again. But what you've done is you have wasted money and you've wasted time, and you've learned that's a place that I won't go, I won't eat that food anymore. Basically, you have learned that this particular time, that time was sucked out of your life. You've learned some things from it, but I guarantee you, you won't do that again. One of the things, when situations come up and opportunities come up to where things begin to suck it out of us, God is not going to stand by, and he's not going to watch the life being sucked out of us when he knows that you can potentially bear fruit. And one of the interesting things about distractions is they're not always bad. In and of themselves, they're not always bad. Distractions aren't always negative things that take us away from the things that we should be doing good. You remember Martha and Mary? Well, Jesus went into their home, and, Martha was busy preparing for Jesus, and Mary was helping her, and then she got, led away, and before you know it, she was at the foot of Jesus. And so Martha got a little upset. She got a little hot under the collar, and she said, "Now, Lord, don't you care that, Mary done left me and I'm cooking by myself? I need you to tell her to come and help me." And he just said, "Martha, Martha, Martha, you've been distracted and busy over a lot of things, but only one thing is needed. And Mary has chosen the better part. And I'm not going to take that from her." The things that distracted Martha, they weren't bad things. In fact, they were good things because she was doing things for Jesus. But I want you to, if you don't remember anything, I want you to remember this statement today. The very things that Martha was doing for Jesus distracted her from Jesus. We can do a lot of good things. Martha, make no mistake, one of the things is when our lives are deeply entangled in things that draw us away from God, that is often the opportunity that God does. He comes in, and that's when he prunes us. We're at this station, and our mission is to be pruned. Our mission is to fill up so that we can be ready for the journey. But remember, when you're at this station, you are on a mission. Nothing else matters. You don't want to get there and you find your friend and, from 10 years ago, and y'all get to talking, and before you know it, the gas is still running. You got the thing on automatic, and, you only wanted $25 and it's still going. But the bottom line is when you get distracted, you have to remember you're on a mission. My oldest son, Maurice. He's 28 years old now. He lives in Nashville, Tennessee, and he's a jokester. When he was about 11 or 12 years old, he started playing football. And I remember I had to take him to get his first physical. Now, those of you who have played sports, you get a full physical. I mean, a full physical. Everything from the stuff on your chest to getting on the treadmill. I mean, you kind of get a full physical. Well, one of the things is he jokes so much that when he'll tell a joke but won't laugh, which makes it so funny. And so I'm thinking that he's joking. So we get in there, and they tell him the things that they're going to be doing. And so they come in there with a needle. And Dana, you would appreciate this. You know, when they were ready to take blood, all he could say is, no, 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 Mom, no, 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 I don't want to play football. He was willing to give up what he loved because of one, not a shot, but just taking blood. So they said, well, we'll do a butterfly. So they gave him a butterfly syringe to where, you know, if he moved, it wouldn't bother anything. But I realized he was serious when I saw one tear. Just one. And then I began to see I began to hear a little noise and his facial expression and, you know, Mom being emotional. I had to realize there was a bigger benefit for this. There was a bigger benefit. He had to play football. He had to do what he loved. And so I stood right there as he was making those faces. And one of the things about enduring the pruning process is much like getting a needle. It's not much like facing the needle because life is full of needles. Now, we've got two choices in this case. We can either run out of the doctor's office and decide not to take the physical, so therefore we can't even play football that season, or we can run into the arms of Jesus. Now, if we run into the arms of Jesus, he's going to keep you in that room because he knows you need the needle. After you gas up and you're on this road, after you gas up and you ride a little bit, now you want to stop somewhere in between there and get a bite to eat. Now, some of you all, how many of you all, when you stop to get a bite to eat, you actually stop, go in, sit down, take your time and eat? How many of you just go through the drive-thru, pick it up, and eat it while you're driving? You're on a mission, right? But then again, when you stop into the restaurant, you're on a mission because you're trying to get full, you're trying to eat. One of the things about stopping by and getting a bite to eat, that leads me to my second stop. It comes from verse 4, 5, 6, and 7. It says, abide in me and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, so neither can you unless you abide in me. I'm the vine and you're the branches. He who abides in me, he bears much fruit, but apart from me, you can do nothing. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you will, and it shall be done unto you. Second stop is the abiding diner. I want you to imagine two branches. One branch is dead, leaves are dying. One branch is full of vines, full of fruit. I mean, just has been pruned and it looks good. Now I want you to, with those two examples in mind, abiding means to remain. So as you can see in your picture, when you picture that, what happens when a branch stops abiding. When it stops, it's cut off from its source, and without it being connected to the source, it doesn't have any sap. It doesn't have anything to run through it. And so what is imminent is death. Death is going to occur, even though it may take a while. It may take a day or two. You know, it may take a while. I remember where we used to live, we had hedges, and we used to trim those hedges every single week. They grew pretty fast. Not me, but my brothers and my dad. And one of the things that we noticed that if you don't pick up what you've already cut off, it not only is going to look bad, but you'll be able to see a difference. You'll see the brown at the bottom and you see the green at the top. Doesn't really look good. Jesus said that the key to fruit bearing The key to a fruitful, productive disciple is to abide in him. Just as the branch abides in the vine, as long as we do that, the sap of his spirit will continue to flow through us. And his character is going to burst into flowers, and our branches are going to ripen into luscious fruit. You see, it's not enough just to bear flowers, because the flower is the step before the fruit actually comes. So it's not enough. So he wants us to continue to bear that. The trouble with some of us is we're not good at abiding. We fool ourselves into thinking that we can survive apart from the vine. But we can't. Without him, without abiding, we can't. Because if we are disconnected from the vine, it's only a matter of time before the leaves begin to wither. It dries up, it turns brown, and at that point we become unable to bear any fruit at all. So once you've got on this road and you've stopped and you've got gas and you've got a little bit to eat, now you're ready for the third and final stop, your destination. It says, he who abides in me and I am him, he bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. But verse 11 is the one I want you to focus on. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be made complete or made full. You've now arrived at your destination. Well, at least one of them. So the third and final stop is the town of bearing fruit. Some people may get there sooner than others, but this is a place that you have planned for, you have packed, you have put it on the calendar. You cannot wait to get there. You cannot wait to see whoever is going to be there, whoever you're going to see, whatever you're going to do. You have prepared for this thing for a long time. And you've already gassed up, you've already got a bite to eat, and now you've arrived. Remaining and abiding in the vine, it's a matter of love. It's not a matter of duty. Agape love, it is not an action. It is an action. It's not a feeling. It's not an emotion. It is an action. It's not an emotion. You abide in God's love by keeping his commandments. Because without obedience, there can be no abiding. Without abiding, there can be no fruit. And if you lack obedience, you may as well just stop praying, just stop obeying. If you're not obeying, you may as well just stop praying. If your goal and intention, I'm just not going to do this, you may as well just get up off your knees, unfold your hands, open your eyes, and go take a walk. Or go do something. Because if your motive is not to be obedient, then you will not bear fruit. If you are connected to Jesus and you're committed to obeying him, despite your flaws, despite your failures, then don't hesitate to tell him what's on your heart. I'm doing this, Lord. I know I don't need to, but this is what I really want to do. The scripture says it is God's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Fear not. Well, you may say, well, Sister Smith, I'm abiding in the Lord. I am committed to obedience. When I fall short, I confess and I repent and I get back in that abiding mode. But I've been praying for something for 3 years and it hadn't happened yet. Now, how do I make it between the time that I start abiding to the time that the answer shows up? Well, I got good news for you. Because if you're abiding, God has given you something that is worth the wait. And verse 11 says, he's given you joy. I've told you this so that your joy may be complete. Now, let's not get joy and happiness confused. There's a difference between happiness is circumstantial. It's based on your circumstance. It's based on what's going on around you. If everything is wonderful, then you're feeling wonderful. If there's tragedy or sorrow, then you're sad. Whatever's going on outside of you is how you feel. That's happiness. Happiness is that warm, bubbly feeling that you get when things are going well. But joy has nothing to do with what's going on around you. Has nothing to do with that. It is a decision that you make in your mind, and you realize one of the things, if we keep in mind, that happiness has to do without, and joy has to do with what's within. In fact, joy itself is a fruit of the Spirit. It is a fruit. Joy produces a peace in the midst of panic and calm, and in the midst of turmoil, it gives you calm. Now, on the day before Jesus' crucifixion, on the eve, he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane that this cup might pass. Now, after all, there's no happiness associated with being crucified on the cross. So one of the things that very similar to our prayers, your particular cup may be a contentious spouse, an overbearing employer, an empty bank account, and even a chronic health problem. But just as God did not take away Jesus' cup, God doesn't take away our hardships. So how do we cope? And how do we cope well? Well, the same way Jesus did. According to Hebrews 12:2, it says, "For the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame." And he is now sit on the right-hand side of his Father. He endured the cross, despising the shame. Jesus decided to look past his pain and see the purpose. The agony and the shame had a purpose. As long as you continue to seek joy from your circumstances, you're going to get fleeting, momentarily moments of happiness, because joy is not going to come in your circumstances. I'm reminded of my children when I take my children when they were much younger. And I remember taking them to the doctor's office. So you go to the doctor's office and you sign in, and then you look and you see that the waiting room is pretty full, and you're like, I don't know how long we're going to be here. So you sit there, and your kids are maybe 5, 6, and 7, attention span kind of short. But then you look to your left or to your right, and you see a play area. They got puzzles and games and toys and crayons and coloring books. They got plenty of activity to keep the kids interested and occupied until the doctor is ready to call their name. Just by way of encouragement, church, I know that sometimes we're tired of waiting. You've been waiting for the Lord to come through and make a way out of your personal wildernesses for a long time. Still, the doctor has not called your name. But God has a room set up for you, and it's called joy, where you can spend your time waiting on him, but you can spend your time waiting on him with a smile on your face. You see, God prunes the branches until they bear fruit, however long that takes. But he's still not satisfied, because he's not going to settle for anything less than a lot of fruit. We don't get to a point to where this is enough fruit. We don't get to our destination and we're satisfied, because that's not where we live. We got to go back home, and then we go somewhere else. We are going to be traveling all these different roads. So I want to say to you this morning, just by way of encouragement, God is writing your story. And I don't know what he's allowing in your life personally to get that done. But I do know that he has a purpose. And I do know that he has a plan for each and every one of the situations that occur in your life. There's a purpose behind that. Nothing is by mistake. Nothing is by happen chance. Nothing is, oops. God doesn't make mistakes. And I do know that even in the darkest of your chapters, that you're going to be able to find joy. And so I want to encourage you this morning that there is a purpose for you on this journey. There is a purpose that you're on this road. And I want to encourage you, don't get off the road.